Chief Webster, when there's a situation where you have a person who is habitual criminal and not incarcerated, who can you go to talk to about this? Who can you go to and say, look, we've got this young man, we know he's ready to explode, something's going to happen, and we've got to do something about him, but we don't have, can you talk to him? Can you talk to the public defender's office? Who do you talk to?
It usually wouldn't be the public defender's office, just the way we're structured. I mean, it could be, but it usually wouldn't be. It might be Reverend Watts, it might be someone in the community. I know that's something that we've talked about over the last couple of years, that you're looking for some programs through the court system to help out with that. People like Reverend Watts are in positions, you counsel these guys, and you can predict, he can predict it, a lot of it. He can tell us, but it's very frustrating, because we don't always know. You can see it kind of unwinding. You can kind of see this person slipping, but a lot of times it's too late once it happens.
How's your relationship? How's your relationship?
We have a great relationship. I mean, I have great respect for him, because he's accessible. You call him, he calls you back. You have a problem, he shows up. And I think that that's a good thing. And even we don't always agree, we always agree we're going to talk about it. And we leave, we've got a good understanding where each person stands. I think the Chief makes an excellent point, that what we got to decide is how we're going to approach this. A horrific crisis like this can bring attention. And the question is whether or not we use this as a way to interrogate our system. Now, if we're just going to be defensive and basically say we got the best system in the world and it can't be improved, but if we go back and take a look at every phase and every step to say, could we have done something differently? It doesn't mean that it would have been a different outcome. It just means that we take this as an opportunity to improve the system. So hopefully next time it will serve us better. An issue we got to deal with is the root cause here. You've got a serious substance abuse problem in this country. It is the #1 pathology that's destroying this country. It is a driver behind much of the crime we see, particularly violent crime. You have a situation we don't want to talk about, the depression, the discouragement among these young people. They're self-medicating with drugs. They're mixing prescription drugs with illegal drugs and with alcohol, and they're lethal time bombs ready to explode. And we're not responding with substance abuse mental health treatment for this population of people. And until we do that, we will revisit this.
How much do you work with the public defender's office or the prosecution? Are you in touch?
Sure. I mean, we work very closely with the public defender's office, because normally the juveniles in particular that we work with are represented by a public defender. And there are times that we work with the prosecutor's office as well when we feel like, look, you know, we don't have a conflict of interest, but there are times that there's a person that we think this person needs aggressive prosecution. We know things in the community that the people making the decisions in the court after people have come through the metal detector, they don't know. We see people in real time, in real situations, and we know relationships that are volatile in the community that some people don't know about. And so we have
Mr. Gattel, you were nodding your head there.
I agree with much of what Reverend Watts has to say. I need to add a few things. And one is that we have a good criminal justice system in this state. What we need to do is recognize that this is a good system, this is a good city and a good state with a low crime rate, not a high one, with a domestic violence rate that is decreasing, not increasing. And yet when you have these individual examples, we can do better.
And you've made those points, but I guess I have to ask you and Chief Webster, how many more Desmond Clarks are out there?
Well, I think we probably all can answer that. I know probably Reverend Watts from some
yeah, that's true.
I mean, there's more, and then you know what? They might be 10 years away from being the next Desmond Clark, and that's the trick here, is trying to figure out who those people are, but we've talked about before that sometimes the system empowers these young men and women, but and maybe possibly in Desmond's case, maybe not, maybe the fact that he did have those arrests and he never did spend any real time. I mean, I don't want to put words in Reverend Watts, but I know I feel this way, that maybe he got empowered a little bit by the system. I can keep getting away with this kid. I don't know. And it does seem like, particularly in juvenile system, it seems like there's a lot of empowerment, because there's not real, we don't feel in law enforcement there's any real consequences.
Are there guys out there committing serious crimes and not doing time for it because the defense is real good at convincing a judge not to?
Oh, I don't think so.
No.
The experiences that I have in court, you know, and I hate to continue to seem so contrary, but the experiences that I have in court are much more frequently the opposite, where we present a compelling case for treatment and rehabilitation rather than harsh punishment. The judge imposes harsh punishment. That's why we have a jail and prison rate that is 3 times higher than it was 15 years ago. I mean, 3 times as many people are in custody today in a state that has not grown in population. And I think one of the reasons we're here today is because these kind of cases that we're talking about are so newsworthy because they're rare. Not that they're commonplace.
That's a good point.
They're rare, and
Yeah.
we're here today, and we should recognize that. Not that it isn't,
And we want to make sure they stay rare.
Exactly, and become even rarer.
I would slightly beg to differ there. I mean, a crime this horrific may be rare, but we have shootings in this city. You know, and in recent years, I mean, we've had a number of murders that take place.
Last time you and I talked was some young
That's
men were
correct.
shot in Charleston.
Yeah, but here's what I would
So
say.
they're not becoming quite so rare.
I would agree. I would agree with George. And when you look at the adult system, I think that there are times that we're mad at people and we're angry with them. And sometimes the reason we're mad and angry and frustrated is because they've been through the juvenile system. And so we're quick to pull the trigger. And I would agree. I think we're locking some people up that shouldn't be locked up, nonviolent people. We're giving ridiculously high sentences with some of this drug stuff and so forth. My concern, and where we might have a slight departure, is that I'm concerned about our juvenile justice system. Because as Chief said earlier, I do believe that in times it emboldens these young people. Because what we don't do is that we don't bring the consequences and the help. And I'm not suggesting that we lock them all up. I'm one for only locking up the person that needs to be locked up. But what I'm saying is we do nothing. And very often we send most of them home with their parents. They conclude that the juvenile justice system and the criminal justice system is an absolute joke. And they go through this for a number of years. And then they graduate at 18, and now they're in the adult system. And one day, with the passage of a birthday, the way they're treated totally changes.
Let me get back to Chief Webster. What's your relationship with the prosecutor's office? There is some question here. I guess an officer didn't show up for a hearing from Clark.
Well, that wouldn't have much to do with our relationship. That might be. We're researching why the officer missed, and we are researching that. And it could be he didn't get a subpoena. It could be. I mean, it could be no fault of his own, or it could. But then again, it could be his fault. And that's what. And there's probably going to be discipline if we can. We're researching that because one's a year and a half ago, and one's 2 years ago. So
Is the police department consulted on plea deals between defense attorneys and prosecutors?
We are. It's ultimately the prosecutor's, call. But if the investigator or the officer, if they need to aim to be a shareholder and get in there and make sure their case is heard. My experience has been when I was working cases is that on major cases they will ask you.
Okay.
They will, and these are some major cases we're talking about. But it's ultimately their decision, and sometimes officers get very upset. It's probably as the public offenders may know. Sometimes they don't like the deals that are given, but I think as officers get older and seasoned, they end up moving right in the middle and understanding exactly what these gentlemen are saying. Is that I want the right people in jail. Okay. As a police officer, I don't want everybody to go to jail, and so our officers start realizing that, and they want the violent criminals in jail too.
Here's our frustration. Frustration is the way the system works. You plea a case. The public didn't hear the evidence. The public didn't serve on the jury. The probation officer then does a pre-sentencing report. They got a process they go through, and they'll get a stack of letters from a lot of people that know and like this person. But there's very little input from the public in terms of what the public really thinks. So there's little perspective from what happens. And so this process will move forward to the pre-sentence report, to the judge, the police. Of course, I think they're trying to represent the public's interest, the prosecutor, but the thing is pleaded, so it is what it is. So then you're left to interpret what you see. So what you see is a person that you know that's potentially violent and you think should be locked up, and they get released back to the community, and you simply don't understand that. So then what happens is the people then start to conjure up things. And they say, well, they must be a confidential informant.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
And that's why this morning I said, no, I don't believe that this young man was a confidential informant. Why? Because Brent Webster said that he wasn't. That's good enough for me. But in the minds of the people, they can't figure this out because they know certain individuals in the community